All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Succeed. This is Gearface, and I'm so happy to be joined once again by my good friend Blue. Blue, thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure, Gearface. Hello, everyone. I'm here to teach another awesome character.
I can't wait. In fact, viewer, sometimes listener, I'll be real. This is the point in Excess Succeed's history in which we, if you're between, let's say, 25 and 40 years old, we've returned to the opening cutscene of Final Fantasy X, where we've stopped the flashback and returned to the present. The character that we're learning today, back in the far off year of 2022, a beleaguered Gearface came to Blue, burnt out on Exceed, and asked to learn a character, and had so much fun learning about this guy, Bang, from this guy, Blue, that I was revitalized. I returned to Exceed in my glory, and it was great. And then a couple years later, I decided I wanted to do that for every character in the game. So very, very excited to be returning to where we started, Blue and I, learning about Bang. Something that I think set this whole series into motion all those many decades ago. Um, and nobody else but Blue is allowed to teach this character to me because of that. So very, very excited. Couple disclaimers, as always, before we get started. Number one, play Exceed for fun. I have a feeling that with Bang, you're not going to have too much difficulty playing Exceed for fun. It seems like he's the kind of guy who you might be able to have some fun with. That said, we are going to be talking about playing to win on this show. The two are not mutually exclusive, but if the way that we are describing how you should play Bang doesn't line up with how you think you'll have fun playing Bang, don't play that way. Play somewhere else, some other way that you might have fun with, because it turns out you'll have more fun that way. Disclaimer number two, we don't know everything. Despite protestations to the contrary. I don't know anything. Blue knows some things. But our opinions are not facts. Exceed is not a solved game. We are going to talk about strategy in a pretty prescriptive way on the show. There's going to be a lot of alwayses and neverses. Take all that with a grain of salt. Develop your own lines of play with Bang. Tell us why we're wrong. There's a lot more to explore. There's a lot more Exceed left to be played. And then sound off in the comments all the ways that we undervalued your favorite Bang tool. But yeah, all that said, Blue, please take it away. Tell me a little bit about Bang.
All right, Bang is well, let me give you the very basic character pitch. He's a ninja. He's a really cool ninja. He's kind of a jobber in Source until he's no longer a jobber, and then he does the most important thing in the game. The like last game story. Not literally the most important thing. The most important thing is something that the main character does naturally, but Bang does do a very important thing. Uh, but anyways, very cool character. So, what does he like in Exceed? Well, obviously he plays a bit like a ninja, but when you think of a ninja, you probably think of a character like Chips Enough or maybe like Lucia if you've been around for a long time. Bang doesn't really play like those. He actually plays a lot closer to someone like Ryu, who we also have the character card of on the board right now.
He's a training
And
dummy.
that might sound, yeah, true. Um, and that might seem a little odd considering like Bang doesn't look like Ryu. He doesn't like act like Ryu, but this kid is deceptively Ryu-ish, and that it emphasizes fundamentals and generally playing Exceed. So then, aside from I want to play Ryu, but I want my friends to think I'm cool instead of lame. Why should you play Bang? Well, because he's cool. And also his tools are a little bit more ninja-y versus Ryu's. I got big numbers and they're ballin' that he's got going on. So, with that said, let's talk about the ability. Probably not for very long because this basic mode is not very important.
Right.
Uh, as an action, look at the top cards of your deck, draw one, discard the other. This is effectively the prepare action, except that you get to curate between two options with the downside of throwing one away. So
Right.
it gives you a little bit of card velocity, like through your deck, in exchange for like reducing the amount of options that you will see over the course of the game. Notably,
So,
this does play into your Exceed mode, your Overdrive, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
so, so when I'm using this, all of the rules about preparing, when to prep when you've lost neutral or when you've won neutral, all that stuff, that still applies to when I'm using my character ability. Is it? It's not a replacement for prep. It's a side grade, right? Like I'm not exclusively using Bang prep versus the regular old prepare action.
That is correct. I only usually use it about twice a game. I am a infamous bang prep hater. So don't take me at my word. Find your own way. The real secret to bang Shishigami is that finding your way is the way to play the character. He's all about having lots and lots of different potential play lines that you can take advantage of and react to how things are going and what has happened, while also like giving you like a reasonable and coherent end game, which
Right.
is pretty cool and pretty fun.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think I've seen I was watching a game once of our shared friend Dave Usonian playing Bang, and he used the Bang prep action and got two cards that he wanted and had to discard one. Is that sort of the lost case of Bang prep? Like that's what will happen if you use it too often, is you will inevitably get something that you really wish that you didn't have to discard.
That ain't the lost case. That's the average case. All your cards are good. That's why this thing sucks. Do you really want to look at two good cards, which is practically guaranteed to happen with this action, and then decide which of them you want to throw in the trash?
I don't actually when you put it like that. So and yet you still use this once or twice a game.
Yeah, because sometimes the tempo of the game dictates that I need to be moving through my deck a little bit faster than I am, but I shouldn't be CCing.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And that is the admittedly fairly narrow use case for this ability.
Yeah, is when I want to prepare, but I want to prepare while moving through my deck slightly faster than the prepare action does.
Okay. Makes total sense to me. And from how we're talking about it versus how we've talked about how the rest of his cards are just like they're good, not a huge part of his power budget.
Yep, it is deliberately not a very important part of his power budget because his power budget is centered in his kit, which we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that, and his exceed mode. Which, with that said, let's talk about his exceed mode. His exceed mode is three very potent effects. When you exceed strike, which on an overdrive character means this can loop, this overdrive can loop. Ragna's has the same property, which that means that we should be thinking about by default. Okay, well, we can potentially loop our overdrive easier than other characters. What does our offensive and defensive game look like, and what is our range coverage, especially action compressed range coverage, to enable us to actually make it so that the opponent can't escape and we can actually loop our exceed mode if that is something that we desire.
So
Um,
when you say loop the exceed mode, you mean over the course of the exceed mode, build up enough gauge to exceed again, and then
yeah, yeah.
immediately strike and continue your offense.
If we have 4 gauge, we put our 4 gauge into overdrive, we strike, we build 1 gauge, and then we have 3 turns in overdrive where we are actually in overdrive. We build 3 more gauge because we strike every turn, hopefully. And then after that, if we want, we will have 4 gauge that we can then exceed with again.
Okay. Because you would revert, oh look, I have 4 gauge, exceed, flip, strike, continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Notably, the property of your exceed mode, your overdrive looping, does not necessarily mean that it's something that you want to do. Um, if you are actually succeeding at striking every turn, that usually requires like a pretty hefty economic investment to actually make that work. So oftentimes if you actually manage to like get 4 strikes in a row where you strike 4 times in a row, even if you landed those hits, you might not necessarily have a hand. Anyways, let's go ahead and fix that problem real quick. Overdrive, return all copies of the discarded card from your discard pile to your hand.
Okay. So walk me through the steps here. I've exceeded, overdrive goes over here. Overdrive trigger, this goes back to my hand, and
Yes, and then
so does this
also
card from discard.
a copy in discard if it is available.
Okay. So builds my hand, gets my options back online. Um Provides recursion for strong attacks. That's all cool stuff. I notice that there's another line of text on my exceed side here.
And it scouts an EX attack, which means that our exceed ability, which otherwise would be kind of a meme,
Right.
of your EX attacks have 1 power plus 1 power, is real text actually because it's scouting EXs of attacks that were good enough that we hit it with them in the past, and also we're bang, we have good attacks throughout our kit.
Right.
Um, so this is pretty mighty, and this means that the character is an endgame machine because EX attacks are great when both players are low on options. Recursion is great when both players are low on options. I need to turn off my hand thing.
I think it was like that. Something
That
like
was the
that.
order. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have now turned off my hand thing. Anyways, good old fashioned TTS card explosion, such is
You
life.
you love to see it.
Economy, stats, good cards. There's also some other things, but we'll related to this, but we'll talk about those later. But yeah, so lots of really strong traits centered on this succeed mode. This is clearly important, but also it is flexible. It is not something where you necessarily need to have one game plan going into it. And I want to say that right now because we will be talking a bit about one game plan relating to this that is like we'll call it the fantasy of the character.
Right.
But remember, normals are cracked, and
And so are EX
normals
normals.
yeah, normals that are EX with +1 power go pretty hard. Here's two pretty banger normals that you can just like throw at the opponent. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Um, you can make pretty much all of these basically unbeatable or literally unbeatable, pending positioning.
So when we're thinking about the value of the succeed mode, um, if I have, for example, if my hand is uh sweep, assault, dive, and those are three of the cards in my overdrive. Let's say I have four cards in overdrive, I have four cards in gauge, I exceeded with that exact number. I'm like, oh man, my overdrive trigger isn't getting its full value by pulling something from discard. That doesn't actually matter that much. It doesn't sound like I'm still building an EX attack. It
Yeah, you're still getting the value of scouting the EXs in the order that you choose. And also, I have some great news. After you hit the opponent with those 4 EX attacks that you have in your hands that you have put from your gauge back into your hand and then hit them with, uh,
one will be
you have
engaged, one will be in discard.
yeah, you have them again.
Yeah. So this ability is strong. Let's pretend that there's a sweep in overdrive over here. This ability is strong if sweep is in my hand or if sweep is in my discard. It's not particularly strong if sweep is in my gauge and in my overdrive. Right?
That is correct. Gauge
Okay.
or deck is like the worst case. Which
Okay.
notably, the worst case is still like, oh no, I get 1 extra copy of focus instead of 2 extra copies of focus.
Right. I can't make use of the EX attack rider on my exceed ability quite as easily then. But hey, focus has reading, focus is a great card, focus is focus. I can make that work. But my point in asking is I'm not necessarily trying to set up a situation where I have four amazing options in gauge and then four duplicates of that option specifically in discard. That doesn't matter as much as they're in discard or hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just they will be available to you in some way, and then like if they're not going to be available to you in some way, it's just like yeah, like sweep is a good card. I don't actually need to play a DX. Focus is a good card. I don't actually need to play a DX. The opponent has 5 health. It doesn't matter if I'm not going to get my full EX value. I just need like an assault into unstoppable palm thrust or
Sure.
something
At
like that.
at minimum, it's recursion. At maximum, it's pulling two cards to build an EX attack out of nowhere from two options that you've already used to blow your opponent up. Those are both good things.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is very exciting, and it's very exciting partially in that it can do many things, and you can choose how you want to use it, and the value will often it will often produce reasonable value. It can produce a lot of value, but it will often produce reasonable value.
Okay. Before we move on from the exceed mode, very quickly, folks might notice this little yellow icon on this character's card that does not exist on the actual character card. This is a TTS exclusive thing. We are not going to be pressing it. Please do press it on your own time because it's really cool.
Yeah, you may note if you're like familiar with Japanese that that is actually the Furin Kazan like
It's the it's
kanji.
it's the four characters from it's like Art of War or something.
I don't actually remember what it translates to, but it's the seals that you're collecting in the game to power up your Super Saiyan mode, basically.
Right. Okay. So exceed mode seems awesome. You want to move on to the kit?
Yeah, sure. So let's do these in order. I've laid these out in the order that I wanted to talk about them. So here's PBJ, pulverizing blast jutsu. This is a Tatsu, but slightly bigger, and also with a slower profile. You can think of this as spinning bird kick from Chun Li's kit. I am so bad at speaking today. Um, and you basically use it in the same situations, which is you expect the opponent to hit you if you're looking for this after effect value, but just generally, you're expecting the opponent to end up at ranges 2 to 5 from you, and you want to hit them with an attack that trades like a champ.
Okay.
It also like usually doesn't lose because of the after effect. If you whiff, like the opponent dived into you from range 4, like you whiffed, but you did get to choose from many different end positions, and also you reduce damage. So like it's not the worst thing in the world to just like throw this out if you're not sure what to
Right. I
do.
mean, I mean that's flexible after movement is awesome, but like up to 2, advance or retreat up to 2 is very strong text.
Yeah, it is very strong.
Okay. So without too much explanation required, this is just a good card.
Yeah, this is a like just regular, very good card. Uh,
I wonder if that will become a trend with Bang's Kid.
yeah, the boost on it is a mobility tool. It kind of provides similar value to the actual attack itself, which is like although in a different situation, which is this is advance 3, and then you get a bonus if you cross over the opponent. So PBJ the attack is more of a like mid to long range tool, like anti zoning, anti whatever kind of tool. And then this boost is like establishing from melee mid range, which you might be wondering, huh, why would we want to establish mid range, and especially like choosing from if we go from 2 we go to 2, from 2 to 1 or 3, or from 1 we go to 3 or 4, 2 or 4.
Right. Oh, this isn't
Um,
this is this second or
yeah,
third
yeah, this
sentence actually that's not optional.
yeah, that is not optional, which is why I'm running over this. And then from 3 we establish either 1 or 2, which is a little funny.
Right.
Um, But yeah, so this boost does some funny things. Notably, it does some funny things with the next attack we'll talk about. We'll talk about that attack in a second, though.
Sure.
But yeah, this is like a footsies tool. You may notice a few of these, even the attack itself, and a few more of these throughout the kit. And then just general like pretty solid range coverage. Part of the reason why Bang like has these is like the ninja fantasy of like being a high mobility dude, and it also is part of him being like a fundamentals character. He doesn't have the Miyamoto Musashi action or the Oda Nobunaga action,
Right.
so he needs to get his mobility from elsewhere, and he gets it from boosts like this and other parts of his kit.
Okay.
Is the gist of it?
So he's gonna like I can imagine in sort of like the simulationist fantasy of Exceed that double jump is either he's literally double jumping, he's jumping off of air, or like he kicks off of his opponent's back and finds a new position, and there's lots of cool ninja fantasy stuff going on with that.
Yeah, it is literally that the character in Source has a double jump, similar to Chips Enough, who can jump 3 times.
Right. Right.
Um, I think
So
actually similar to other. I think similar to Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue characters normally have a double jump. I think in when he's in his like Super Saiyan mode, which I'm just going to call it that instead of calling it Furinkazan,
right.
he has like ultra enhanced mobility. He has like an 8-way air dash and like a triple jump and a bunch of other crazy shit.
Right.
Which obviously this isn't doing any of that.
But it's
This is just he
it's
has a double jump and it's
representing
really cool.
the sort of high mobility, extreme
Yeah,
speed
yeah.
of the character. Okay. So in terms of how we evaluate this card, solid solid use cases on both sides. Again, this might become a trend that we are often going to be choosing between two good options with Bang.
Yeah, pretty much always.
Sometimes when we have that kind of problem, there's a uh, the cards help us out a little bit where they they present situations where when the boost is not good, the attack is good, or vice versa. These seem to often be good, and I'm just going to have to kind of feel it out based on what I'm going to need. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. Although, as mentioned, these do cover different situations. This is usually like I'm in melee and I want mid range versus I'm at mid range and I want melee.
Okay.
For what these do. But yeah, this is a really stable attack. It's got a whole bunch of stats on it, but it does have loss cases in the sense that if the opponent dives you, yes, you did lose the strike, even if you didn't lose it as horribly as you could have.
Right.
You didn't get stunned. You did get to choose end positioning, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but yeah, so like this is a useful attack. It's a attack that like the opponent can actually beat. In fact, a lot of these attacks the opponent can actually beat, except for this one.
Right.
But it is useful, and it is especially useful within the context of a character that is like a fundamentals oriented character, because this is like your longest range tool that doesn't require you to do any weird finagling. It just is an attack that hits 2 to 5.
Right.
And then the boost is useful mobility on a character that wants that because he cares about positioning.
Right. And as mentioned, doesn't have any sort of positioning tools on his character ability itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So you personally are using both sides of this card whenever they come up.
Yeah, I probably lean more PBJ as an attack, but like I'll use the boost if I need to. And again, we have recursion, so we shouldn't be afraid of using the boost when we need to, as long as we can hit with this attack if we want to hit with this attack. And again, it is a very reliable attack to hit with, unless the opponent is specifically like playing against you playing this attack. But like I don't know, there's only so many ways to do that that also like cover Bang Style Shuriken. Which I guess now
Right.
that I've mentioned it a few times, let's talk about Bang
Yeah.
Style
Let's
Shuriken.
talk about
Just Bang
let's talk
Style
about
Shuriken.
Shuriken.
It's one of the most infamous cards in season 5. It's an attack that doesn't lose. It's deceptively expensive to play this, and it also is extremely low reward. Those are the counterbalancing factors of it. Is it usually is going to do 1 damage or 2, and it is a force special that we have to validate. Sure, it like refunds itself, but it doesn't actually refund itself because it actually is a 2 force special if you're doing anything real with it.
Right.
Uh, so
It's before it's to be explicit. It's before effect takes a boost from your hand, and that's another force that you're spending.
yeah,
Okay.
so like rather than explaining every single way that you can use Bang Style Shuriken, because the answer is you can use it with all of these boosts to do things, and then all of the normal boosts to do things. I will instead just say this basically serves as our like defensive, keep the opponent honest tool, similar to like a Ryu Shoryuken, or for a more brutal example, a Ken Axe Kick.
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, we can like throw this out to make sure that the opponent isn't being cheeky, and it will probably win us the strike. It will not win us the strike in a very exciting way, but it will. It is a tool with which we can ensure value and do like kind of fun neutral things where we like boost fear set like range 3, and the opponent has to be scared now,
Right.
because we have a tool that we can use to confirm that value
Easy,
and other fun things.
easy above curve value confirms.
Yeah, yeah.
To
We want to hold like at least one copy of this above our opponent's head for most of the game, because if both of these are down, our defensive game suddenly is a lot more jank. At especially at the mid range where this is actually covering us.
right.
So you don't really want to just like throw these out. You want to like manage these and keep them for really important situations. But like, do throw them out. Like you need to throw this card out, even though it's not a very exciting card to throw out unless you love just winning strikes in expensive and low impact ways.
So and not to go too far down the rabbit hole that you are shying me away from of all the many ways that we can make use of this. I remember from our lesson 20 years ago on Bang, like just to give people an idea of how this would work in practice. I play Bang Style Shuriken. I'm at range 3. My opponent responds with sweep, and I say, "Uh oh, I can't hit with sweep. I can't trade with sweep." I play backstep from my hand and I run away.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Or
some
whatever.
bread and butter uses are like if the opponent, if you need to evade the opponent, backstep, run, double
Double jump.
jump,
Sure.
set nail,
Yep.
do that.
And then
Technically, this one does as well, but it's like a little. I would save this for other uses.
right.
Is my recommendation, unless you absolutely have to use this.
Right.
Um,
And then the important part about this, again, I'm sorry, I'm just like a lot of things just I remembered them from a previous lesson. The important
yeah,
part about this is that you are deciding what to do after your opponent has already put their card down. So let's say they
yeah.
don't play they played assault instead. And then you say, cool, where's his +1 power? This guy. I don't have to move
This is the
anywhere.
other. Yeah, yeah. This is the other bread and butter use of it. Is I larger than life. This is literally power attack. This is just power attack with a different name.
Yeah.
Which is a like standard boost, and then you power attack. You have hit gain advantage. It's a 2 power attack now, and also you get 2 of these very cool and fun attacks into gauge, which I should probably actually talk about why that's important. But let's instead talk about why these specials are awesome, even before considering anything else.
Sure. And obviously there are more use cases for Bang Style Shuriken, but basically the way that it was explained to me all those years ago is if you need to move, move. If you don't need to move, larger than life.
Yep, if you have access to both of those, then that is a great time to play Bang Style Shuriken if you are afraid of the opponent doing something that you need to be able to beat.
Yep.
Is the short of it. So like if you need to keep the opponent honest and you have the ability to keep them honest in your hand, go for it. That is a great time to deploy the Shuriken. Um, because it is a important tool to Bang's defensive matrix, I wouldn't really like throw it out on a gamble very often. But you can do that if you're fine with just hitting the opponent and maybe taking an awful trade,
Right. Right. Okay.
or like throwing it out at range 4, where
Where
it's
where
much
where
less
where
likely to trade.
yeah, where there's less but there's also less threatening things to beat out there sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes
Uh,
sense.
so obviously, like talk about the attack. This is an important attack, so you need to like maintain it. Let me talk about this boost. Actually, this boost is really underrated and it's kind of fucked up. Return a continuous boost from play to its owner's hand. Draw one, take another action. The draw one is on there so that if you have EX Bank Style Shuriken, you can play this and then pop the opponent's boost that they have in play back to their hand as basically another copy of tech and draw instead of wasting the value of it. It's so that it feels better. So to play it with itself.
Wait, hold on.
So
So I might have missed a step there. You have both copies of Bang Style Shuriken.
let's
They
say the
boosted
opponent is an
something.
idiot and they not that one. Let's say the opponent is an idiot and they played this and then they initiated into you with this. And then you defended with a single copy of Bank Style Shuriken.
And then I see. And then one copy of Bang Style Shuriken, you'd pull the other one from its before effect, you get rid of the boost and that feels better.
Yeah, you send this back to their hand and then you draw one versus losing the take another action
Take
value
another
off
action
of this.
part. Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why that's on there. Just as a quick aside, because
Right.
I literally got this question like yesterday or
Right.
like 2 days ago on
Of
why does
course.
this
And
have this text?
if you were because if you were playing this raw, there's literally no reason to draw one because the take another action could have been spent playing the or using prepare.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Anyway, now let's go back to the opponent being an idiot and boosting sweep into you. You can
Right.
instant inpo sweep, return that sweep to their hands, and then take another action, and then boost
Reading them.
read it.
Yeah.
Force them to play the card that you know for a fact they have, and then do something like Void Tempest Kick if you're at a range where you can command grab them.
Right.
Pretty sick, right? This is an epic knowledge check that Bang just gets away with having because it's on a really important card for him to maintain the threat of.
Okay. And I mean, calling it a knowledge check, like that's a hugely valuable thing that you just described doing. That's a really strong play. If my opponent doesn't do that and doesn't let me bait him into playing light, congratulations, he has just not. My opponent now can no longer play light, and that's a really
Yeah, yeah,
strong boost. That's valuable in its own right. It doesn't. My point is, it doesn't stop being valuable once they get the knowledge check.
yeah. They have committed to playing boost, sweep as an attack. Anyways, we have two really awesome ways to beat sweep sitting next to Bang Style Shuriken that we'll talk about shortly.
Right.
But yeah, this is a really funny boost for that reason. It also, if the opponent has, for example, not that one, a One Force Ultra boost that they like playing. Ryu has one of these, in fact. We can return it to their hand. Yes, they like get to the Ultra back to their hand, but also they had to commit an additional force to playing that boost. So they did actually lose value in you returning it to their hand, just like not as crippling as like holy shit, I just like got owned.
Right.
So you can kind of think of this as like a janky tech, but a check that allows you to do some really cheeky knowledge checks in combination with some other tools that you might have available to you.
Okay. So that it doesn't have to lead into reading. It could lead into just striking. It could be essentially just tech hit.
Yeah,
But it's sort of the auto combo is Nimpo into reading into kill your sweep or whatever.
yeah. If you have that set up, that's a really funny way to use it. Um, you don't actually use Nimpo that often. I do think that it's worth keeping in mind that that is a thing that you can do if you have the option available to you, because it is pretty good if you can snipe out a high value card like that.
Makes
And
sense.
Ben can do that. And also now the audience will know that that is a thing that Ben can do, so they don't get owned by this random knowledge check he has.
Right. And I assume the reason that it is being described as a knowledge check, the reason the audience might not know is because Bang Style Shuriken is so infamous, and most of the time you are going to be crutching on this side of the card.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
Makes sense. All right. Shall we talk about command grab?
Yeah, this is an actual literal command grab. It is a 1/2/4/4 with ignore guard. It has other text on it too, which is amazing because a 1/2/4/4 ignore guard is already a fairly self-sufficient shape. This beats anything slower than it except for block, just off of that part of it.
Right.
And then hit the opponent must discard a card at random after draw one means that this also has a huge economic swing built into it which means that block is not really doing great either.
Yeah.
Um,
And also a lot of this beats everything slower than it cards are either like range 1 locked or speed 3 or something. This is surprisingly stable for this is like it's certainly a below curve, but
yeah,
it's pretty fast for a command grab and it's pretty uh rangy for a command grab too.
yep. It's it does a lot in exchange for only hitting for 4, but like a lot of good cards hit for 4.
Yeah, I
Not
mean
every
it
card
hits
needs
for
to hit
4
for 3.
and 2 force worth of economic swing.
Yep.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Obviously there's this like combo where like if you're a coward and don't want to play a command grab, you can bang style shuriken larger than life to get these two into your gauge if you care about that, which we'll get back to eventually.
Yep.
But for now, this is a very good card. Power attack is a pretty good boost. Like it's just a generally good boost. We've already seen 2 attacks that have pretty good like confirm on them, like ability to hit. So
Right.
with that in mind, it's like we're chilling to just also play power attack as a like pressure tool of like, hey, like react to this.
I can probably
Well,
make this work if you give me the turn back.
yeah, and this advantage is like great. Advantage is always great. And then like absent of anything else, gauge generation is also good. And then obviously like as I've alluded to a few times, and you probably already know if you're watching this and you know anything about Bang, um, we care about having specific cards in our gauge, specifically these specials, but we'll get back to that.
Right.
Anyways, good card, good boost. I think both of these are worth using. I think both of these have kind of distinct use cases that are relevant to us. But it's mostly going to be like, do I want to play Bang Style Shuriken with larger than life versus do I want the threat of this attack and what it specifically offers me? Which the thing that it offers me is an attack that says speed 3, 2, and 1 attacks get owns.
Right. And
Uh,
and
anyways,
specifically at a range where spike doesn't hit.
yeah.
Okay.
At range 1 and 2. And then
Right.
here's the other one. I actually, while we were talking about Void Tempest Kick, pulled out Donkey Kick because there's an amazing quote that I remember from playtesting that I want the world to appreciate as well, which is if Donkey Kick is like a bodybuilder, Unstoppable Palm Thrust is a marathon runner. So we already know how good Donkey Kick is because the Ryu XS Succeed has existed for a while now.
Yes.
Because whoever did that one is a lot better at doing these than I am.
That's that
But
I think that was Snake. Shout outs
yeah,
to
yeah,
Snake, wherever he may be.
yeah. Shout outs to Snake. Anyways, so like just already have in your mind that for some reason these two cards are getting compared and they're getting compared as being two very capable athletes.
Yeah.
Just athletes that are part of a slightly different field. So this is a bodybuilder because it's 6 power and it hits you like a goddamn freight train and it kills you. Um, Unstoppable Palm Thrust doesn't kill you, but it is 5 speed. 5 speed is really relevant because it means that this is even better on defense than Donkey Kick at covering the things that Donkey Kick covers. So long as
Right.
we only care about the hit push to gain advantage type stuff. This is a really, really strong card for keeping the opponent honest at ranges 1 and 2, especially in combination with our other kick. These are both kicks. Here's the one that's a kick shape, and here's the one that's called kick.
Right.
Um, for keeping the opponent honest, and they accent the normals amazingly because the normals lack close range mid speeds. They lack close range mid speeds, and they lack a tool to keep the opponent honest at the mid range when it comes to mix ups.
Okay.
So we've already seen that our kit, our specials are giving us exactly the tools that we want to play really kick-ass normals and then also play relevant mix-ups that counter and play off of the normals.
Right. So these fill in I mean, I was gonna say these fill in the cracks between between the normals. That kind of undersells them even. Like they're pretty big cracks that these fill.
Yeah,
Um
these cover the gaps and they cover them with like some of the best versions of these tools that exist on a character.
Yeah, and here's 4 of them, or 3 of them,
Yeah,
I
here's
guess, that
four.
we're talking about. So when we talked about Bang Style Shuriken a second ago, you mentioned that you really want to keep one of these around to sort of check your opponent with and make sure that you can always hold that threat. Is that also true? I often hear about command grabs that is a similar thing. Is this something that like all of these cards sort of need to remain present in my opponent's mind, or am I occasionally okay to get rid of two copies of a card?
All right. Well, the great news is that these actually cover mostly the same things. They cover them in slightly different ways. This one trades with focus, but as long as you're fine with trading with focus, which it's assault's stats. It is
Most
literally
things
assault stats.
most things trade with focus, and gaining advantage off of a focus trade is not the worst thing ever.
Yeah, like if you're fine with the assault focus trade, then you are fine with the unstoppable palm thrust focus trade. So like these cover very similar things, and you have 4 copies of these. For this specific like interaction of like I beat sweep,
Okay.
I like do okay into focus. This one does better into focus, but it also doesn't gain advantage notably.
Right.
Um,
Maybe I'm okay playing 2 copies of Larger Than Life because I can crutch on uh Palm Thrust twice.
yeah, like
Okay.
I think that it is fine for you to use these more aggressively, and in fact, I think you should be using these kind of aggressively because they're really good cards.
Okay. And
Um,
Bang Style is something that I should keep in reserve because it is such a strong defensive option. But these
yeah,
ones
this
together are a really strong defensive option, but I can sort of mix and match how I use them.
Yeah, and this is something that we can't get anywhere else in our kit in this form. We have another tool that is I am hyperfast, but it's a very different I am hyperfast tool.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so the boost. Here's how you use the boost. Like technically, it does other things, but this is a boost that's really janky. Outside of the I am using it with Bang Style Shuriken use case, which basically serves as an additional copy of Run or Backstep, because we're installing an after effect. So before hit, after move one, we can use it to evade stuff.
And it's slightly less dramatic movement than double jump, run, backstep. But if I'm at range 3 and I'm running into a sweep and I need to back up to range 4, I don't need to back up to range 7.
Yeah, you can use this. This is economically better than backstep, because it refills itself. It gives you an nav draw,
Right.
and you don't need the like as you said extreme movement of a backstep. You would want that like if you played Bang Style Shuriken at range 1,
Right.
to get to range 4. But like if you just need small micro positioning and you have this available, it's another relevant tool. Which, as mentioned, like this is a card that is often a range 3 to 4 card as far as its defensive properties go. That's where it's most relevant.
Right.
At 2, it's like basically just another copy of Cross that is lower reward and more expensive. So like I would only really play it at ranges 1 and 2 if you happen to wild swing into it, which like we can already see from our kit that we have pretty kick-ass range 2 wild swings. Literally all of these cards hit at range 2 and form a relevant mix-up that the opponent is going to have to call.
Right.
So like we're not the
As
worst
do
at wild.
many normals, by the way. Like
Yeah, as do most normals. So like at range 2, wild swinging is not the worst thing in the world. The tools are precise enough that I don't often lean into it because like in a situation where a character that would want to always be on the offense, like Ken, might be like, okay, well, I like want to blow out my hand, and I guess I'll just have to wild swing on the opponent's turn. Bang can instead like slow roll a little bit because he has pretty competent defensive tools. He can set up really strong defensive plays with especially set nail, which we'll talk about in a bit. So you can like afford to just like take a turn off and chill and not like roll your face on the keyboard worrying about killing the opponent now. You only really need to do that when you're in this mode, and when you're in this mode, you probably are going to have pre-planned out your tools to you're rolling your face over to kill the opponent.
right, yeah, you're rolling your face very precisely over the keyboard at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
For Flying Squirrel, is there uh other than the Bang Style Shuriken use case, is this something that you don't really see yourself using at all?
There are almost certainly times in which I would want to play this. I cannot think of them off the top of my head. It would basically be an instance where I think I want after move 1 and I am fine with passing turn because it is effectively a CC1 that gives me exactly that.
Right. Right. And that is a reasonable effect. But there's often you will have better things to do on your turn than that.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much. Like that is a situation where like I don't know, I'm out of Bang Style Shurikens, but I want the defensive value that Bang Style Shuriken offers me. I have a copy of Grasp live, and it's like available to me
Right.
in a way that is reasonable. Like the opponent can't punish me for me heavily implying that I have that available to me. So like I can boost this, and I effectively have a 7 speed with after move 1. It's chips enough tech
Y-
effectively.
Yeah, and now I can beat Sweep with my grasp, something like that, and that's strong. Like that's a legitimate thing that I can do. But Bang has a lot of legitimate things he can do.
Yeah, and also like if you're worried about that, I don't know, maybe like just play the attack.
Right. Oh, yeah, which is pretty good at beating sweep.
All right, so like I've alluded to it a bunch. Here's we'll call this Plan A. Plan A is get these 4 kick-ass specials into our gauge and then hit the opponent with Hyper Shadow Step Strike with our exceed not when you exceed strike.
Right. So, and if you have 4 differently named specials in your overdrive, you only have 4 specials in your kit. They can only be these 4. This attack, it goes from 8 gauge to 0 gauge. So if I've hit with all 4 of these, I exceed. I have those 4 in my overdrive. I cannot play it later than that ever because I will have already hit my overdrive trigger at that point.
Yep.
Okay.
You have to play it exactly then. If you are shotgunning this line too hard, it is very easy to disrupt you from being able to do this, either through denying you hitting one of the 2 attacks that is like more reasonable to answer, which is Unstoppable Palm Thrust or Polarizing
Void.
Blast Jutsu.
Okay.
You can't stop BTK from going to gauge if Bang wants it. He'll
Oh, right.
just
Yeah,
lose the strike
I can
and larger
play
than life it in.
larger than life, and it goes in that way. All right, and hence we've mentioned this a couple times. Getting these 2 particular cards engaged is a strong thing because of this card.
Yeah, like that is the value of doing that, because like a 2 power 6 speed attack that has hit gain advantage on it and generates like 2 gauge in exchange for like 3 force is, well, I guess it's 2 force. Anyways, it's like fine, but like
Right.
unless we had really kick ass gauge payouts, which this is 8 gauge, but it's like a fake 8 gauge. Although you can actually play this sometimes, which is really funny. And then the
Right.
other ones are a 1 and a 2 gauge ultra. So like we don't really we have ninja ultras in terms of like cost and effects. We don't have a like Street Fighter like Ryu.
We don't have
Oh,
a Metsu
throw
Shoryuken.
let me throw
Right.
Metsu Shoryu or Metsu Hadoken and kill the opponent with our gauge
Right.
type tool in our kit.
Okay. So this is when you say Plan A, the stats speak for themselves. This is a full board 8 damage that the opponent almost definitely can't do anything about. Um,
Yep,
it, it is disruptible. It is something that my opponent obviously knows that I can do and can play around it.
yep.
Um, in most games, this isn't this isn't a realistic game plan. It isn't a viable game plan, or is it something that your opponent just won't let you have, or can you just do this?
You can usually do this if you really want to. It's mostly a question of efficacy and also like opponent willingness to just like eat this attack, because like most characters in the game have parry,
Right.
and the characters that don't have parry have
Have speed
speed
dodges.
dodges.
Right.
Which like it isn't universal, but like we'll just leave it at most characters have parry. The characters that don't have speed dodges, so everyone theoretically has something that they can do into the face of this attack if you are very linearly setting it up. So
Okay.
rather than thinking about this as like, oh yeah, I need to throw Hyper Shadow Step Strike and then do my lineup of specials, rather than like playing for it like that, just play the game normally. And then if it comes to you, if like if these are in your gauge, go for this opportunistically. And similarly, this boost is really awesome. If you find a situation where this is what you need, which spoilers, you might not with that one. You might like here's 2 great use cases. I got a few great use cases in the normals that you might want to check out. Even this one really like I can like throw down a bunch of cards that get really awesome when you throw +1 power and +1 speed on them. But like I think the point speaks for itself. I don't think you should crutch on this tool. I think it is a tool that you should play for and have in your on your minds, and you should be trying to set it up, but you should be trying to set it up as part of playing the game normally, because you have great tools to play the game normally.
Right. Okay. Sure. And having an awesome payoff on top of that is cool, but not necessary.
Yeah, like
Um.
your exceed mode innately is going to get you similar value if you do like EX assaults into EX sweep, for example.
Right. Sure.
And
Sure.
this is almost as hard to answer as this is.
Right. And doesn't require nearly as much setup or finagling with my game plan.
Yeah,
So
so like
so
this is plan A, but like you have plans A through Z, and it's mostly just going to be what do I have when it is time for me to start killing your ass.
okay, that
Is
makes sense.
basically how I want you to think about it.
For Love and Justice, +1 power, +1 speed, now strike. As you said, like there are plenty of cards that you can throw that will make that this becomes a lot better with. This is also very
Yep.
expensive.
It can be. Yeah.
So I'm also noticing, I don't actually think that I put this together before now, but all of these cards, well, maybe not pulverizing, but like if I were to EX these attacks with my character ability or with my exceed ability, they're not always hitting like incredibly unstoppable breakpoints. They're really, really hard to stop, but they might not be completely over the
Yeah.
line. They sort of are when I put on For Love and Justice on top of it.
Yeah, when you remember the exceed mode interactions, this isn't plus 1 power, plus 1 speed, now strike. This is effectively in
Plus three.
combination with your overdrive, plus 3 power and plus 2 speed, now
Yeah.
strike.
Yeah. That makes, I mean, so this, for example, uh I don't actually need to um be at a perfect range to beat sweep with it. I can just crush sweep with this at speed 7.
Yep.
Okay. So
And
and
even PVJ, when you put 2 speed on it, it is on curve at range 4.
yeah, that's true, and is doing a whole lot of damage.
It
Um,
certainly is.
so is For Love and Justice something that you're trying to save for your exceed mode, or is that something that just over the course of the game that is kind of just an always strong effect that you are happy to play?
I usually, as mentioned, think of this as an opportunistic tool. If I have a UPT, Unstoppable Palm Thrust, and I don't want to lose to a single copy of Cross, and I suspect the opponent would want to do that if I play this raw. Boom, baby, it beats Cross now.
Okay.
And like you don't even in the like you are hardcore playing for Hyper Shadow Step strike lines. Um, you only usually need one copy of this. You don't actually need to play the 1 to 8, 10, 8 version of this.
Right.
You can because it's really funny and stylish, but it is often better to, for example, for Love and Justice Unstoppable Palm Thrust to practically guarantee this hit and make it slightly higher value
Sure.
than it is to actually just hit the opponent with a 10 power 8 speed attack later
Right.
on.
My question was actually I think I phrased it wrong. And I think you answered it anyway. I was wondering about For Love and Justice being saved for your exceed mode because that seems so
Yeah,
strong to me. But you'll play it
similarly,
in
I,
front side
I
just if
was
you
answering
have.
that, but I did answer it indirectly. Yeah, like I think of this as an opportunistic tool. If I find an opportunity to use it, I will use it.
Got it.
Is the short of it.
Okay.
Using it in exceed mode is awesome. We have another really awesome tool that we can use in exceed mode that makes this less important as far as that goes, unless you absolutely need plus 1 power on top of your plus 1 power,
On top of your plus
and
one
then
power.
yeah, on top of your plus 1 power, like which you don't usually need.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so like I think of this more as an opportunistic tool. It is very good in exceed mode. There is a reason why I don't think it's that important, which we will get to in a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, really great card. Plan A, but don't be married to your plans. You are an exceed character. You're playing exceed. You're playing really fucking good exceed. And exceed character shouldn't be married to your plans. Predictability is the enemy.
Yep. Makes sense.
Uh,
Tell
here
me
here's
about Fatal
here's
Eruption.
another kick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the third kick. This one notably doesn't have the actual defensive properties of Void Tempest Kick and Unstoppable Palm Thrust. What this gains in exchange is hitting for 5, which means that if the opponent is a dummy and they like try to donkey kick you or something, you just stun them.
Right.
So like what this does is it's like Volcanic Viper on Soul if you initiate with it, or Warhorn on promo night, where it's yeah here's my 1-2-5-5. I can stun like mid speeds that have 4 guard, which there's a shitload of those in the game.
Yep.
And most of them are slower than speed 5. This carries boosts really awesome because it's a 1-2-5-5 that has 4 guard on it.
In
It
the same way
is
that Donkey Kick would.
yeah it is a really good EX, like especially in exceed mode. This hits breakpoints that the other two don't. Notably, an EX of this in exceed mode hits for 7.
Yep.
This is a really mighty card if you're willing to pay for it, and it's not a very high cost. This is basically just a souped up special. It also has the really annoying property of if you're Kai and you try to do Thunder Seal, Thunder Seal splits or not split seal, Dire Clot, the kick,
Yeah.
then Bang will wild swing into this every time and stun you.
Every single time. Yep.
Yeah, every time. So don't in the Kai versus Bang matchup. This is very important for all the Kai mains out there. Don't do Thunder Seal and then walk to 1 with Kai ability. Walk to range 3, because then you're only losing to Bang Style Shuriken instead of Fatal Eruption.
Right, and you're losing for less damage.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also like maybe play a thing that beats Bang Style Shuriken in that setup as well. Like I don't know,
But
cross.
and
Um,
also it just occurred to me that honestly, from Bang's perspective, throwing Bang style Shuriken is honestly more expensive than throwing Fatal Eruption.
it often is. Yes.
Okay, because like a 1 gauge Ultra, if this hits, and it probably will hit, it's a 5 speed 4 guard attack. It's going to gauge, and it's 2 force engage for probably 1 force engage.
Yep.
Okay, so that's not bad.
Yeah, the real cost of playing Fatal Eruption as an attack is that we lose out on this really kick-ass boost. This boost has a lot of nuance to it, but what this boost basically reads is that you will probably win the strike.
Yeah, honestly, like just a third of this would be pretty good. Like if this was before Advance 2, there are really good like there are characters who make very good use of boosts like that.
But yeah, so like to without getting into like too much like detail, let's just talk about it with like these 3 attacks that you might
Sure.
want to hit and might find some trouble with hitting. Now this is a 1 to 4 ignore guard attack that is on curve at range 4.
Yep.
That is again, it has ignore guard and it's speed 4 and it's 1 to 4 with before move you may move to. And also if for some reason you don't want to hit, you can just choose not to. Um Anyways, it's basically guaranteed to hit, probably wins the strike. The Gabrek lesson already happened. You turn this card into Perilous Descent.
Yeah, sure.
So ignore guard Tatsu that is on curve. Anyways, here's a Tatsu that is above curve and has a hit push 2 and gain advantage on it.
Yep.
Try giving this to a character, a 1 to 2 4 5 with 4 guard before advance 2, hit push 2, gain advantage. You will
Yeah.
not have that last for more
Yeah.
than one
Yeah,
version.
I'm when I eventually make customs, that's the first card I'm going to make.
And then this card is 2 to 5 normally. I think it just hits like
Now it's like
1
now
to
it's like it's like
7.
it's like 1 to 7.
Yeah, I think it's 1 to 7 with this. I don't remember the exact calc, but I think you can make it hit at every range. Yeah, you can make it hit at every range 1 to 7.
Yeah. So and all of these cards like has a range band problem sometimes. It does not hit at range 4, does not hit at range 4. Like these are pretty clear use cases for this.
Yeah,
Among the
yeah.
normals, awesome. Here's eat range 5 sweep, eat range anything dive, basically eat range 1
Turn into
spike.
Axel and have 1 to 4 focus. 1 to 4 cross, 1 to or yeah, 1 to 3 grasp because it's may move to.
Yeah.
And
Like
also
so
like if you don't want to trade, you can just choose to retreat. So it's like it is a grasp that is 1 to 3 and then also is effectively an extra copy of cross.
yeah. So basically just like you said, wins a strike for free. Some of these options, like when you mentioned that Void Tempest Kick is on curve on at range 4 with this, I'm thinking at least that requires my opponent to not strike into me to make that be like totally safe. A lot of these kind of don't. Like
Yeah,
above
like what
curve range 4, um massively above curve range 1 spike's kind of hard to stop. Like a
that
lot of these use cases are going to do just fine on defense too, right?
yeah, another massively above curve. Like this is like your worst case, and it is a card that will win the strike and is only on curve. Is
Right.
is a great way to look at it. This boost is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
It's so strong. It is a deliberately character defining tool because similar to Bang Style Shuriken, the way that it works in the game is that like you throw it and then it has like a nail, and then you can like step on the nail, and then like you can like dash off of it.
Right.
So
And
these actually
do
are
all sorts of
acting.
crazy things.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of different types of nails, which is why there's a bunch of boosts that are like deliberately designed to work with Bang Style Shuriken. But yeah,
Right.
set nail is like representing the mobility part of that, and then also like the crazy like mix-ups and setups that you can get off of that. In the same way that this is representing that Bang Style Shuriken, the thing that sets the nail, can just like do whatever the fuck you want, basically.
Right.
So like these are carrying a lot of weight with regard to like thematics, because these are carrying a lot of mechanical weight in the game for the character function wise.
So with this boost, we just described that essentially everything in the kit becomes way better with it because it's so strong. And like obviously, I'm trying to squeeze as much value out of it as I can. Um, is there like a damage threshold or like a goodness points threshold that I'm trying to get out of this when I hit with it, or is it really just like when I need it, I'm going to know and it's going to come up, it's going to be awesome?
More that one. One other thing that Bang lacks that a lot of other like fundamentals oriented characters have is like really strong, stable, neutral options that they can play consistently. We're holding it down with power attack and sentinel, and those are like basically it. Aside from like more proactive or mobility based tools.
Right.
Um, so like you can think of this as essentially our way of the warrior. Obviously, it doesn't literally do that, but it is
It
effectively serving that purpose in our
it
kit.
wins the strike. Right. Okay.
And you should treat it in a similar way. Throw it out when you need the value of Wave the Warrior because you need to say, "I'm winning the strike. Fuck you."
Right. And in other circumstances, Fatal Eruption is a strong, easy to mash ultra. It's gonna do good work for you. It might be kind of hard to evaluate these two against one another. EX Fatal Eruption especially is really strong, but that makes it very hard to play this at all. There's gonna be some
Yeah,
decisions to
like
make.
I would say that like if I'm like giving some play hints, I would say that you probably want to boost that nail a little bit more than you want to play Fatal Eruption as an attack. But similar to what I was talking about in the Ken lesson that we did the other day, um, don't let that you want to use one side of this make you completely ignore the other side because this is a 5 speed, 5 power kick. It might not
Yeah.
have defensive properties, but by God, does it have stats? And
Yeah.
stats is a thing that Bang is, especially killing powers, power is something that Bang kind of lacks otherwise.
Right. Right. Okay. And also, it just occurred to me that the value proposition of using Sentinel and then losing EX Fatal Eruption is way less real on a character who has Bang Succeed ability. Like I could get
You're
this back.
absolutely right.
Okay,
You are
cool.
absolutely right. But yeah, so like pretty good card, pretty good card on both sides. Bang can also be a little expensive, so like the fact that we have 3 ultras also sometimes means that like, oh well, actually I need a full hand right now.
Right,
Goodbye.
right. Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Shall we move on to our friend Poulter's not exceed tournament?
Yeah, yeah. Infinite Chaos West of the Void. Um, I know there was already a chip lesson. Was there a Satoshi lesson already?
Yes, there was. Jay did a great job teaching me about Satoshi.
Excellent. Shout outs to Jay and also whoever did the chip lesson.
Chica.
I figured it was Chica, but I wasn't sure. Anyways, shout outs to Jay and Chica. They talked about 9 speed attacks already. That
Yep.
means you've probably already heard a little bit about how 9 speed attacks are a thing that Exceed characters don't really get.
Yeah, you're not
And
allowed to.
how that is
Yeah,
that
you
means
have
that by default they're relevant.
the characters that you just named are a character who is defined by being the fastest thing on the battlefield, and a Red Horizon character who sort of by dint of being in the season that they're in has things that we probably wouldn't give a character anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Which notably, Satoshi's is a lot better than the other two 9 speed attacks that exist, because the other two are much more prone to trading.
Right.
Anyways, here's Infinite Chaos of the Void, a 9 speed Dragon Punch that is prone to trading.
Yep.
It is still a 9 speed Dragon Punch, and if you had any doubts that Bang was a Shoto in the Exceed Shoto lottery, he is. Here's your Dragon Punch in case you didn't count this one as a Dragon Punch. And then you have a Tatsu, and you have a kick, and a kick,
And a kick.
and then, another kick.
And
He's the most
this is a
Shoto of
fireball
all
too. Don't worry
Shotos.
about it. Like this is a Hado
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this is useful because it has 9 speed. And if I need
It is,
9 speed, I'm probably going to know it because my opponent probably just put down Swift Destruction or something.
well, not Swift Destruction. This actually is kind of inconsistent in Swift Destruction. But yeah, you know when you need to contest speed, and you will know it in your soul that you need to contest speed right now, and that is when you will play this attack if you are trying to play it as a defensive attack. This does have another funny property, which is this hit effect. Hit, you may add any card from your discard pile to your gauge.
Okay.
This is a 2 gauge ultra with this effect on it, which means it refunds itself entirely. Which means also
Oh,
effectively that this is a 1 gauge ultra. It just is a 1 gauge ultra that requires slightly more startup gauge.
right.
Let's say you like there is a specific sequence that you're trying to build towards, like I don't know, maybe gathering the 4 seals and then hitting the opponent with Farun Kazan. Or like some other really funny sequence, like playing EX Assault into EX Sweep into EX a swappable palm thrust or something like that. Oh, actually, you probably do that in a slightly different sequence. Anyways, um, if you're trying to set something up, maybe you want fatal eruption in your gauge, and you already used set nail twice. This lets you do it. This lets you do whatever the hell you want as far as your gauge composition goes. Because we're a character that cares about that a little bit. This lets you fix any problems or create a new solution out
Okay.
of thin air.
And because, as mentioned earlier in the lesson, the thing that I'm looking for, the thing that I'm trying to avoid is like two things in discard, two things in gauge. I can usually make it work as long as my uh, options are spread across a couple of different zones. I don't care about this if I haven't if I haven't boosted both copies of Set Nail. If I already hit with one and I got one in discard, I just need to exceed, and I will get my EX that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a problem fixer as far as that goes. Which you're an exceed character. Decks do be decking.
Yep.
And obviously we can't all have the godlike ability to shuffle the deck into the exact sequence that we want to arrive into our hand in.
Skill issue, but
So
okay.
yeah, with that in mind, also like sweep exists, so like sometimes you just randomly discard things that you need. With that in mind, this is a great fixer, and also it is on a extremely stable defensive card that provides very obvious defensive utility to us.
Right.
And also pretty much guarantees that this hit effect is going to go off unless we like really got owned.
Okay. So if I need a 9-speed attack, if I need gauge fixing, that's what this is for. Clearly, it's not for damage. It's not for like it is cheap, but it's not providing me economic upside other than the specific contents of my gauge. I'll pretty much know when I need this attack.
Yeah, and like it does technically mean like similar to all like ludicrously above curve attacks in combination with Bang Style Shuriken, especially like if we boost Grasp at ranges 1 to 4, the opponent kind of just has to hold that.
Right. Yeah.
Which means that like we kind of like boosting Fierce. Also, like we don't super care about Grasp because we have
Because we have a
super
9-speed
duper
attack.
ultra
Right.
omega Grasp.
Right.
So like you can like boost Fierce a lot more freely than a lot of characters can. Which is nice. It's really cool that we can do that. It's because, as mentioned, our neutral presence is a little stilted, which means we will often be looking at normals as boosts in addition to the attacks.
Right.
For the ones where we like the value of the attack as well.
Sure.
But
Okay.
yeah, so this is a answer to problems that you will be able to identify them when they come up, and just like play it when that happens.
Sure.
You can sometimes initiate with this, but you're mostly playing out on defense. It's an extremely stable card to play on defense because, like, you know that the opponent is going to be at range 1 because that's how Exceed works as a game. You
Yeah.
know that this is going. You know that with reasonable certainty that this is going to land given like a board state, and you know if it's not going to land given board state. If you look at the opponent's boosts and determine, oh, they actually can hit me with a speed 9 thing.
Right.
So just like play it when it's reasonable, and it will give you the value that you expect it to give, and it might even like own the opponent if they played like a spinning pile driver or something.
Sure.
That would be
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, it is a in addition to being a defensive option that does really well against speed 8 options, it's also a really good defensive options against speed 4 options, as long as they don't have
Yeah,
guard. Okay.
yeah. All right. So I talked a bit about how we don't necessarily want to save for Love and Justice for Exceed mode because we don't necessarily need the value of it. Here's the reason why we don't necessarily need the exact value for Love and Justice. Here is +1 speed now strike with funny mobility, but mobility that actually mostly enables us to continue our offense. And then it loops when we're in Exceed mode. It returns back to our hands. We can continue playing this.
Okay.
So, like, for the most part, if you care about getting +1 speed, the advance 2 is not actually a penalty because if you care about the +1 speed, you probably want to play some kind of melee attack that hits at a range where if you advance 2 and then strike, you are going to be able to hit the opponent. I just pulled out a few examples just to give an idea.
Yeah. And these are cards that I can if I really think about it, Blue, I can imagine wanting to play these cards.
Yeah. I know I've pulled them out a few times. I think you're getting the idea, the picture as it goes for what's good. But yeah,
Yeah.
so like if you care about making yourself even faster than what an EX attack already gives you, you probably are intending on playing a melee attack, and you're playing. You want this for a reason. You're not just playing this for memes, especially because it's kind of expensive if you're going to be mashing it in Exceed mode because it's a 1 force ultra boost. The ultra
Right.
part isn't relevant, but it is a boost that costs a force and forces a strike, which means we
it
want kind of a full hands going into our Exceed mode if we are planning on leveraging this over and over again.
Right. And my exceed mode will give me a little bit more ammunition to work from in hand, but not that much to be able to just consistently do this over and over again unless I'm really, really stacked on
Yeah,
hand size.
the ammo that we are going to be using to feed beat a nail with your hammer, which by the way is one of the Ferngazon themes. So the card is telling you that you should be considering using it in exceed mode in case
Right.
the card, the
It says
literal
exceed mode on it.
text, yeah, the text of the boost didn't tell you that. Um, but yeah, so like it's good, but like you're gonna be playing a basically face up offensive EX sequence, so you probably are gonna want to know that that is what your plan is and be fine with that being your plan. Which, as mentioned, you can do something awesome like assaults, like EX assault into unstoppable palm thrusts, which like notably that actually the advanced 2 makes it so you set up a range 2 unstoppable palm
Right.
thrusts, speed 7, and then like you can advance 2 again because like you even if you didn't stun them, you push them to range 4 and you can just like not advance and then you advance and you do like Void Tempest Kick, which is now on curve, or like sweep or spike.
Yeah.
So like
Congratulations. I've just hit for double digit damage while gaining advantage and stripping cards from my opponent and probably just
yeah,
won the
yeah.
game.
Also, the sequence that I just described did hit for 6 and then 6 and then 6.
Right.
While also being on or above curve at every step of it.
Right. So use this in exceed mode. Probably don't use it not in exceed mode. At the same time,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
don't be too fast. Similar to For Love and Justice, this is also a great opportunistic boost to use in basic mode. Sure, it doesn't loop, but it is. I am both +1 speed now striking and fundamentally changing the board state from what you were prepping for. And also, we're at probably range 2 and I'm throwing a on curve kick into your face.
Right. So
So,
yeah, plus one power isn't upping the value on palm thrust even more, but the exact same card that you used to describe why you would play for Love and Justice in basic mode is why you would play beat a nail with your hammer in basic mode.
yeah, and also, like, it's a slightly different use case because this is like, "Oh, I'm at range 4, but I need
I
to,
would like to be
like,
at
step
range
in."
two.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
So, like, don't write it off, but yeah, this is really kick-ass in Exceed mode. It's kind of expensive if you're, like, playing for that. So, like, it's not something you do in every game, but, like, again, Bang is a character of contingencies, and he is a character, who can do anything so long as you, set your mind to it.
yep.
And plan around it, or in some cases just go, well, I see that my gauge is like 4 good cards. I guess it's time for me to flip and start killing you.
Right. And it if you use it in exceed mode, it makes your exceed mode way better. If you don't use it in exceed mode, hopefully it's because your exceed mode doesn't need the help because you are
Yep.
already doing really strong things with it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, that's every single card in the kit. Blue.
Except
I
for
can't.
this
There's no
funny.
other cards here.
All
We have
right.
Astral.
Yeah, let me talk about Ultimate Bang. I don't like Ultimate Bang. I don't play it very often. I like getting full value out of my decks, and I also am pretty good at navigating through them, such that I'm not reading weak, like weak to the boost on focus reading,
Right.
while doing that. So generally speaking, I don't actually take the reshuffle action most games. If you want to play Ultimate Bang, here is the like very short tutorial. This attack is a 2/3 1 speed attack, but it has 30 guard on it. You can just read that as stun immunity. It basically is stun immune, except it loses to spike.
Spike. Sure.
Um, a 2/3 1 speed attack is pretty bad, but it's not a 2/3 1 speed attack. It is a 1/4 attack.
Yep.
Um, it's pretty much married to set nail. If you actually want to hit with Ultimate Bang, it's married to set nail. And notably, that means that because this scales off of the amount of cards in our discard pile, the value on this is deceptive power value wise because this is a 4 gauge ultra, which means this is a 6 power attack base. We have fed 1 additional card into our discard pile by playing set nail after reshuffling.
Right.
Uh, we are already hitting for 7 with a 1/4 attack that basically is stun immune. Um, any value past that is not strictly necessary if Ultimate Bang is an attack that you want to hit with, because a 7 power attack is already pretty fucking good.
Sure.
But like if the opponent for whatever reason is just disrespecting the threat of Ultimate Bang, you can also, instead of doing the setup immediately, just play normally and see what they do. And And like if they're not parrying it, then go, okay, well, like I've played the game for like 3 turns, so now I have like 3 cards in my discard pile because we're playing like a normal Exceed character.
Sure. Take 10.
Set nail. Would you like to take 10 now? Like, why are we doing this?
Right.
Please react to my setup. So yeah, like you don't need to like play hardcore into this. If you want to play hardcore into this, you can just like spam the change cards action, but I wouldn't actually recommend doing that because like you have better things to do with your time. But
Yeah.
if you are dead set on landing this attack and killing with it, play set nail. Play set nail and like just play normally for a few turns.
Right.
And like you can even think of this as like if you actually need to take the reshuffle action because you're not a god of resource management, or like it just happens that the deck is like the last 8 cards are normals or something, and
Sure.
you don't want to draw any of that crap. You can just like reshuffle, and it's like, okay, well, like I have this, and it's good when set up, so I can just like play normally, and if the opponent clearly doesn't care about this, I can just like eventually play for it after playing normally. Again, Bang is a character of opportunities, and you choose which of them that you want to take advantage of. And I
Sure.
don't think you should be married to any one specific plan. I don't often use this, but I think it is an astral with very obvious use cases that are good.
Sure. Our shared friend Bana on his lessons occasionally uses the term compliant opponent. So like if your opponent is letting you get away with this, you can certainly get away with the ultimate bang. It sounds
Yeah,
like your reason for not doing it has more to do with you not wanting or not needing to take the reshuffle action than anything to do in particular with the ultimate bang as an attack. Is that correct?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
It's just that I
So
don't like taking the reshuffle action because I don't like taking a turn off to do it because I
sure.
usually don't need to.
Sure. So if you need to reshuffle for whatever reason, such that you wind up with an astral in your hand, and you're like, "How did this get here?" Here's how you use it. Probably don't gun for it because taking the reshuffle action is a low tempo action on its own.
Yeah,
Um,
although, as noted, Bang is a character that is reasonably defensively stable, and if you are finding yourself in a situation where you need to take the reshuffle action and you are taking the reshuffle action because the rest of your deck is normals and you don't want to draw any of that crap, you probably still have a stable defensive mix-up available to you.
hmm,
So the ultimate bang is a pretty good test of, hey, like, is my opponent compliant in that kind of situation? So maybe actually, if you want to play for this, or even like just see what your opponent is going to do, maybe actually do take a like offensive reshuffle when you have like, I don't know, 5 to 10 cards left in your deck and you have a reasonable defensive mix-up still available to you, just to see
right,
what they do.
right, sure, that makes sense. So okay, that's all the cards in the kit. I have many questions for you, Blue. And there's a couple different ways we can take this lesson at this point. I have a feeling that you're going to tell me all about economy. I have a feeling you're going to tell me all about normals, all the things that I always ask you. Before that, I want to revisit Bang's Exceed mode and his end game, his ability to set up end games, because we've talked a lot about the flexibility here. We've talked a lot about his many lines that he can find in the moment. And the most obvious one is Fern Kazan, is Hyper Shadow Step, right? Um, how am I controlling this thing? Um, am I am I playing Exceed normally for a little while, seeing what's in my discard, seeing what's in my gauge, and then finding a line from that?
That's what I usually do.
Okay. And what that would look like then is, again, all right, I've already boosted one copy of Sweep. I don't want to boost the other because then they're both in discard. I would like to at least hit with something that I want to recur, because I can't really recur from discard without crutching on this ultra, right?
Um, that is a reasonable like that is a reasonable way to approach it. I don't even think you necessarily need to even be married to that. Again, predictability is the enemy, and if the opponent knows that you want to hit with the second copy of sweep exactly, then they're going to be more likely to play against it. So rather than like, oh, like I need to like manage my resources in this way, just like actually play normally and just see what happens when you get to like turn 8 or something.
Okay. And I when it comes time to flip the switch and go for the kill with my Exceed mode, I certainly don't need to do it as soon as I get 4 gauge, right? Like I am looking for options that I can select out of my gauge to put in my overdrive that are going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
So
which
it
luckily is many of them that exist within
right,
Bang's deck. So,
most of the cards can probably make something work. I would prefer it if I had access to them in my hand or in my discard pile so that I could get them back and keep the offense rolling. Um, do I need any boost support? Like if I have for Love or Justice, for if I have my theme song boost, those are great. But I'm not waiting around for those necessarily if I don't need to.
yeah, I wouldn't say that if you have a good setup and you know it's a good setup, that means the setup is probably good enough that you do not need additional stat support to make it a
Okay.
good setup. The one major consideration as far as slipping goes, timing wise, is that you need a good strike for the turn in which you are forced to strike the exceed action turn.
Right.
So, like an in-hand EX is ideal. I wouldn't say it's required. So long as you have something you are willing to play, then you're good on that front.
Okay. That makes sense. And again, like these are good problems to have, right? I have a deck full of strong options and a really strong flexible end game. Finding a prescribed line is beyond the scope of this guide and is something that is kind of the cool part about Bang is finding player expression and making this sort of your own. Um, odds are I am going to be like a really good Bang player is going to get an incredible end game. If I pick up Bang and play a couple games with him, I'm probably going to get a workable end game because it's Bang and he's good at this.
Yeah, and like if you do actually just play linearly into like, oh, I'm doing the Fern Kazan stuff, like you're still your goal is still fundamentally hit with a 2 to 5 Tatsu, a 1 to 4 speed 6 attack, and then 2 kicks.
Right.
Which like these are just good exceed cards as far as
Yeah,
that goes. So like
both
and they
doable and high
also
value.
yeah, and these also are like reasonable mix-up options, which is why I say like yeah, just play the game normally. Like you don't actually need to do anything weird or special because
Sure.
the weird special thing you need to do is hit with good attack shapes number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right. Or numbers one, I don't know, two, three, and four or something, right? Like I can make this work.
Yeah, and with number 4 you can even choose instead. Actually, I'd rather have another kick in my overdrive instead. If you don't actually want to loop bang style shuriken this time around, you have options,
Okay.
and your options flow into other options, which is why I would personally recommend just playing the game normally.
Okay. All right. And Exceed is a complicated enough game with enough resource overhead and enough decision making that is not easy. But I don't really need to concern myself with all of the extra mechanical weight of Bang stuff because it's gonna work out all right.
Yeah, and you can think of it as basically like if you want like the most basic prescriptive line, hit with this and play this. Do for love and justice or beat a nail into this, and then the last one that you need to figure out is this because it's the one that is the hardest to set up in a way that is completely unreactable.
Right.
I don't know, like
I don't know, set nail.
yeah, set nail. There we go. Yeah, there's your prescriptive line that gives you all 4 seals, basically guaranteed, and then you can play the second copy of Hyper Shadow Step Strike,
Right.
essentially face up, but it's fine because it's an 8 power attack.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
But like you don't need to do that. You have a million options available to you. You should look at what your hand is telling you is good, and play what is good in the moment because what is good in the moment will lead into a good situation later on if you're managing your resources and all that stuff well. If you're playing Exceed good, the character will reward you by letting you play more good Exceed and playing it harder and faster than your opponent can handle.
Okay. That makes sense. And so he has a stable defensive mix up if he needs it, but if I'm playing Exceed harder and faster than my opponent can handle, it also means that I'm sort of trying to keep the tempo up. At least in my Exceed mode, I am.
Exceed mode, yes. This is when you step on the gas at 100 miles an hour and you're killing the opponent's ass dead, and you're striking like every turn for the next 4 turns, and you probably striking for next first 4 turns, next
After that,
4 turns. Well, not necessarily. I'm misspeaking. You're striking, and you're gonna do like 12 to 18 damage in ways that are difficult to deal with. And the best the opponent can do is like force a trade.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah, and that is enough, right? That is strong enough.
yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. So, we mentioned a couple times that Bang is quite expensive, and I can see that there's a lot of force costs on these boosts. He's got a lot of ultras, which might help offset that. One of the things that strikes me that is most expensive about him is that I don't want to give up any of these cards.
The opportunity costs are so real.
How do you manage his economy when your card quality is this good?
You just deal with it.
Okay. Thank
Like, I don't
thank you
know.
thank you for watching this episode of X to
Here,
Succeed, ladies and gentlemen.
here's your two force cards that every character has shuffled into their deck.
Right. Yeah. So we're okay to spend these two cards as force. Um,
Like it's block. Some people value it a lot more than I do, and in fact, sometimes I even block as bang or like play parry. But like a good way to think of it is like basically what are the things that we are the least likely to need, um, and then those are like good places to start.
right.
Here's three attacks that we represent the utility of within our kit in reasonable ways.
Sure. We've got this. We've got this. We've got, I guess, block. I mean, we can do some things that kind of feel
That is true that
blockish
we have
with this.
a extensive way to not lose the strike that is probably a little bit more efficient than block. So we
Right.
do actually have kind of a block counterpart within our kit. But even aside from like, yeah, like I don't know, spend these normals as force. Like you are a character that has recursion.
Oh, sure.
If
If I
you,
spend them as force and I have
yeah,
another one in my gauge, I don't actually care that much. Assuming I can't wait to throw EX block as bang in exceed mode.
dude, that's
Um,
gonna be so sick.
oh yeah,
But yeah, like
that's
you're
the
you're
secret tech.
you're a character with recursion, so like the secret is that so long as you're fine with like say dropping the second copy of one of these because you already hit with the other one, or like you like these will already form like as mentioned earlier the same ish part of the mix up.
Right.
You probably aren't going to be spending this as force like ever.
Right.
Um, if you already hit with this, or you just don't care about playing for Ferenca's onlines and you're fine with just dropping this as an attack shape, this is like reasonable to spend as force. We have ultras. We have a shitload of them. We have an unusual number relative to most characters, and like, yeah, they all do great things. They do great things attack side and boost side, but we don't actually need six ultra boosts that are ultra boosts. So we can like probably drop like this if we're not playing for it to CC at least two. We can
Right.
drop like a copy of this if we need to. Drop a copy of this. We don't like want to get rid of these entirely, but like, if we just need to move through our deck a little bit faster and we are willing to CC, then CCing at least one Ultra or two to refill our hand is a pretty powerful play to keep us good on tempo.
Okay. So it'll be painful, but it's doable to manage my economy. I've got a couple of little minor draw boosts here and there that might help offset things. But really it's just like, well, all these cards are good, but what do I need in the moment?
Yeah,
Okay. That makes sense and is encouraging because that seems
yeah,
like a
and
scary problem to solve.
as mentioned, I think that Ben can be a pretty opportunistic character. So like, think about what your opponent is telling you that you need, and then keep those around is like the big advice. Which obviously the opponent isn't going to literally to your face say, "Hey, you need to keep this,"
Right.
but their actions, their character choice, their resource management decisions, these are all things that are going to be implicitly telling you the things that you should be keeping. And in that way, maybe we actually do need this extra copy of Grasp because the Speed 9 one isn't all that we need as far as contesting speed.
Sure.
Like you are a character that plays Exceed. You play it really well with high card quality, similar to someone like Ryu from Streets.
Mm.
And similar to Ryu from Streets, you're a character that cares about your resources, not necessarily because you're so expensive that everything sucks, like a lot of Blaze Blue characters like Rachel. But
Right.
instead, because your options are all so fucking good, and a lot of them do specific things that you don't get in other places, that if you drop them completely, then you are opening up holes in your game, and you don't really want giant holes in your game because then those can be exploited.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. So that's economy. That's end game sort of philosophy. The other question that I had was about normals, and we talked a little bit about like these are my neutral. There's going to be my stat boosts. Like this is where a lot of my set play that isn't set nail is going to come from. Here's some force targets. Here's grasp that I can or fierce that I can play more often. Any other? And here are some really good recursion targets with the EXs. Any other important normals considerations for Bang? Like, does he use these cards any differently than any other character would?
I think honestly, more than even most characters do, Bang uses the normals in a very normal way. because, as mentioned, our tools are deliberately designed to give us additional things that accent and augment the way that you play normals in reasonable ways, reasonable, insane ways.
Right.
And even something like, for example, having a 2 to 5 Tatsu. That means that we are allowed to cross out,
Sure. Yeah,
for
even
example.
even even we can probably empty cross out, and with all of our crazy movement, like we might not be able to strike right away, but hey, that's a good time to set nail, right? We can
Yeah,
probably make
like
something work.
reasonable time to set nail. You have an additional copy of run, which means you're not robbing yourself of the value of run.
Oh, right,
And
sure.
also we can actually like hit from at range 7 with Bang Style Shuriken with our copy of run. But yeah, so like
Oh my god, this is a
we
before effect.
it's a
I
before effect.
I've I've
I
I've had this lesson twice, Blue. Okay, this th- this confirms hits when you move too. It isn't just. I'm thinking of this as like a souped up version of Chip's After Effects, where he's moving around and dodging stuff. No, this literally hits things. That's why larger than life works at all. Okay,
it's
sorry.
yeah, well, larger than life would work if you hit because hit into like
Hit into hit,
hit
sure.
into hit.
I was
But
literally
yeah, like
reading this as an after effect that would staple a hit effect onto it. Okay,
again, Bang Style Shuriken is very important with regard to mechanical weight, along with set nail. It is important that literally every boost that Bang has, including the one on itself, works with it in ways that are compelling and interesting, which is also why it reduces the force cost
right,
of the boost that you play down to
right,
0. So that all your ultra boosts still feel really awesome to play.
sure. Okay, let's ignore the fact that this is like my 85th lesson, and I finally and I've played this character before, and Blue has done this freaking lesson with me before, and I still misread one of the most important cards in the kit. We were talking about normals and how you have redundancy with run.
Yeah, yeah. So like we can cross out. We appreciate Fierce. Assault is an awesome card to hit with at least one copy of because Assault is a really godly EX, especially with an additional point of power on it. Um, Dive is a funny one because obviously we care about having mid speeds that hit at range 3 because that's not actually something that we have in our kit. We just have an attack that doesn't lose,
Right,
which isn't actually a mid speed. It's just an attack that doesn't lose. So these are relevant in that they are heavy hitters that offer us additional mix-up utility at range 3, which is a range where we just have this one really awesome button. Otherwise, well, two really awesome buttons, but these are a slow and a fast. So here's some mid
here's
speeds.
some mid
So
speeds.
you can think
Sure,
of these. Yeah, you can think of these as the mix-up option for these two that covers what they don't. But also, we're Bang. We have reasonable positioning control despite not having a Nobunaga or Musashi ability.
right.
Uh, So we don't necessarily need to be at a position where we need to hit with these, but these are still good attacks. Dive is great to staple boosts onto, which like as far as boosts go, ours aren't like holding it down great. Although this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take on curve 6 power dive.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty mighty. And then also this is pretty good if you have the positioning for it, which is like you crossed out to range 5, you can then advance with to range 3 with +1 speed, and then hit the 5
Sure,
speed dive. So yeah, we have like cool things we can do with dive, but they're like cool but kind of specific things. And similar with spike, these also are like reasonable EXs to recur, especially dive, um, as part of like an offensive sequence. But they are cards that require a little bit more positioning than other ones, namely, assault and sweep, which are like you can literally play these face up EX,
you just
and it
mash
barely
them.
matters.
Right.
Um, but like they're nice. They're useful to have. We appreciate what they offer us because of what they offer every character as far as normals go. Tech is tech. It's great. Defend is useful. It's not the most useful in our kit because we are reasonably fast rather than like slow and heavy. Um, it's like still pretty good to like make it so that we can like bulldog with assault or something. This is probably like the card that you're most going to be willing to spend as force, other than like maybe
Other than
block.
block. Right.
But like it still does something useful because it ignores armor, which is something we can't do otherwise. So like, for example, it's funny setup go exceed mode EX spike for love and justice. It's on curve and it hits for 8.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Like, I was pointing out these two normals as being like the ones that you mash. that you have just described a very compelling use case for Spike, Blue. Like that's a really messed up, and that's ignore armor that I don't have in my kit. Okay, so and this sort of demonstrates your point that I really need to not prescribe myself a line. I really do need to make everything work in my kit because everything can work in my kit.
Yeah, and this also makes Bang really fun if you like solving like optimization puzzles, because Bang is a um ever shifting Rubik's cube of optimization puzzles that always have slightly different solutions and always sometimes have multiple solutions that like you kind of can argue with yourself internally about which is like more correct. So he's a really interesting character as long as you like actually like the resource management and optimization puzzles that Exceed offers by default. Which like hopefully if you like Exceed,
Yeah,
you like
hopefully
Exceed.
if you're watching Excess Exceed episode again, like 85 or something, you learned that that's what the game offers you, and you want it. Otherwise, what are you doing here? So, okay, normals, play them normally,
Yeah.
with an
Sweep is
asterisk.
great, similar to Assault. Light is also pretty good because we have two really threatening mid speeds. So holding it down, sweep and light are both good.
Yep,
Focus is useful because defensive utility. Reading is cool because instant imbo, and also like reading is reading. I don't
reading is
like
reading.
reading that much. I'm not going to be that hype about reading. I like focus a lot as an attack. Also, focus is really funny. EX. It's not actually that good, but it is really funny because it does hit for 6, and it's basically impossible to stun. Also, like looping focus and not playing at EX is pretty good, which like I can talk a little bit about
Oh yeah,
using recursion for value later, which is like not really a line I lean into, but I do think it's relevant to mention it at least. Block is block. Parry is parry. If you find the rare instance where you, Bang Shishigami, are having trouble dealing with a specific opponent option, may I recommend the parry button?
sure. Yeah, if it's something that this can't deal with, and also like
Yeah, like this and
this and
this and
this.
this and this
Yeah,
and this. Like
yeah, okay.
you're under some weird circumstances, but it happens.
But
Exceed characters have bullshit.
Parry might be
Parry's good at
useful.
dealing with bullshit.
Okay. And also, I mean, the opportunity cost of playing parry is probably lower than the opportunity cost of boosting or striking with any other card in my kit.
Very true. And also block is a pretty cool copy of One Force.
Yep. Yep, that's fair. Okay. So normals be normalin. My attacks are actually competitive or maybe even better than them often, but I can make use of every single card in my kit. Tell me a little bit about this recursion for value, and I also this this leads me to another question that I had really quickly, about setting up your end games and not and maintaining mix-ups when you're playing things that are kind of face up. Um, so like you you recur something, and then I play an EX attack, and my opponent naturally thinks that okay, well that's the card that he just recurred because he just threw an EX attack at me, and I just saw him pull 2 cards, one from his discard, one from his gauge. He doesn't have to be that, right?
That is
It
correct.
it could be that I just had an EX attack lying around and I just threw a mix up, even though it was so clear that I was pulling an EX attack. Because of how expensive Bang is and because of how uh, opportunistic I have to be, I can't guarantee that. So sometimes when I'm throwing an EX attack, it actually legitimately is going to be kind of face up, right?
Yep.
Does that matter?
Not usually.
Okay, EX attacks are with this kit. EX attacks with maybe some boost support are strong enough that my opponent can know what they are and not be able to deal with them a lot of the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool. And if I can keep a mix up live by throwing another EX attack and faking him out at the last minute, awesome, I'll do it. But I don't need it to make this line work or anything.
Yeah, and notably, just having another EX attack available can sometimes be enough to psych the opponent out. I remember one time I was playing with someone and I returned a sweep to my hand, like EX sweep, and played it. But I sat and thought for long enough that they thought I had a unstoppable palm thrust EX available, and I was debating between which of those to play.
And
I
so,
wasn't. I was debating whether or not I should play the face up EX sweep. They
but
played against unstoppable palm thrust and they got owned.
and so they didn't cross out.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they ate the sweep and they got destroyed because of it.
You love to see it. Okay. So yeah, there's you can still lean into the psychological aspects of the game even when the cards are actually face up, just because your opponent doesn't know that they are face up.
Yeah,
Um,
like Exceed is a game where sometimes you don't have the option, but the option is still exists, which means the opponent needs to at least consider it.
sure, okay, that makes sense. So all right, recurring for value. I assume that means that sometimes I might recur and then play a boost.
Yeah, yeah. So like if you're really dedicated to just like using this to get back good options, Focus and Bank Style Shuriken are both like really stable cards that basically don't lose. Um and then like something like Sweep, like just basically making it so that you can have value buttons that you can like do like this and just say like, nah, we're playing a very slow grindy game where I'm making sure that I'm winning every single strike as clean as I possibly can.
Right.
I don't think that that's necessarily the most stable line, but there are times where your Exceed mode isn't going to be 4 awesome EX attacks that kill the opponent. It is going to be 1 or 2 awesome EX attacks that kill the opponent, and then like, oh well, I'll get back this, and then I'll just like pass turn doing something reasonable because I don't actually want to play this face up as an EX, but like I
Right.
have this, which means I like the opponent needs to respect it. They literally know I have this.
Right. Okay.
And
So
similarly, like sometimes you just don't care if the opponent knows that you have a thing.
and to be explicit, when you say passing the turn when I'm in exceed mode, or I will let my exceed mode run out having done some cool strikes, and then cool, I have these options left over to play the game with.
Ideally, this is like the thing that you get as the last part of your overdrive, but there are like I have watched people play that have a much more defensive leaning than I do, um where their plan with the exceed mode is to get back both copies of Bang Style Shuriken, get back both copies of Focus, with which they can use reading, and then like get back both copies of Sweep with which they can boost for light, and then like a fourth thing that is probably an actual attack.
Okay, and then they've struck twice in exceed mode. Once because they had to, once because they got a cool attack and they can EX it, and then everything else is value for later.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Got
like
it.
that value, they're probably going to start leveraging immediately. So like they might, when they get back the copies of reading, use a copy of reading or use a copy of light. But like light is still a boost that like passes turn to the opponent. So it's basically just like thinking about it more as a way to actually recur resources and set up situations that are hard for the opponent to answer, um, through like pure raw safety rather than just like, all right, I have so many fucking stats that it doesn't matter anymore that you know
Right.
what I'm playing, which is like the like fantasy version of this. Which like I wanted to mention, like also you can recur things just to like have them again. Block is another great like not losing tool if that's what you're going for. Obviously, like these are not things that are going to excite me, and it's not what draws me to the character, but it is an option. And recursion for value is something to definitely consider as part of the fourth card in your overdrive, because that is the one where you don't actually care about striking with, anyways.
Oh, sure, because you're going to flip before you'll have a chance to use it. You'll recur it, and that's the end of your overdrive. Okay. So
Yes,
again,
like
we're going to be using it pretty opportunistically. It might not
yeah,
be something that you personally are going to be setting up to play for value, but hey, I got 3 good attacks. Here's the fourth one. I'll recur it because it's good to recur.
yeah, and like opponent readings are down, so I can just like have this EX sweep or like a sweep and a light, or like two extra copies of focus. Like these are things where you aren't necessarily leaning onto them because of the offensive. Well, although sweep is a great offensive card as well. Focus or like Bang Slash Shuriken, these aren't like offensive utility that you're buying. You're buying the fact that you have as many copies of focus as you care to play, focus or reading, and like extra defensive utility off of this. And with that line, where you more just care about recurring a strong option that doesn't lose, something like Bang Style Shuriken, you might actually exceed early just so you can continue spamming Bang Style Shuriken.
Sure.
Now,
Okay.
I never ever would want to play a character where my dream is to hit the opponent once or 30 times for 1 damage, to win the game, because it sounds like the most boring playstyle in the universe. But if that is something you want to do, Bang does theoretically allow you to do this, so long as the opponent is a little bit compliant.
Okay. So in your view of Bang, the way that you would like to play the character, you are exceeding when it is time to close the game out, and you've curated your gauge.
More or less. Or,
Okay.
or the gauge has curated itself via natural game actions that have occurred.
Okay. And then you might exceed in the mid game. But your plan is your exceed mode is going to be integral to killing your opponent using verbs, right?
Yeah.
Like it's an active thing you're doing, and hopefully it's literally closing the game out or getting you pretty close to it.
Yeah, like if the opponent is at 1 life after the first overdrive, they are basically dead.
Sure.
If that makes sense. And
Yeah,
and
no,
and in
no, that
that
makes
way,
sense.
that's like basically the goal. Is I don't really want to use the overdrive multiple times because when I'm using the overdrive, it means that I'm shifting into kill mode,
Right.
and that means that you should by the end of that sequence die, and it probably will actually be a sequence if I'm playing properly.
Okay. And that's so when we can use that as our metric, us new Bang players out there who are trying to learn this character. Um, if you are using this guide as inspirational advice to find your own way and to determine your own line of play as Bang, and at the end of your exceed mode, you have not come close to killing your opponent, go back to the drawing board and maybe turn these cards sideways and figure out some other ways to use them and find other ways to recur good cards so that you can kill your opponent at the end. That's what we're aiming for.
That is what I aim for. Once
Got it.
again, I will say that Bang is a character that allows for a lot of player expression, and again, players with a much stronger defensive leaning than I personally have do play and enjoy Bang because he is a somewhat defensively leaning character. Um, and because of that, you may find actually I don't really care about killing the opponent. I can just like overdrive like 4 times and just continue hitting my opponent with good stuff that they refuse to deal with. If
Sure.
you want to play like that, may I recommend Ramlethal? She's pretty good at doing that as well. She's actually better at it.
Okay.
Um,
And so there's player expression available in the sort of two diametrically opposed bangs, but even in your bang line, there's a ton of expression available in exactly what configuration of tumblers you find to kill your opponent.
yeah,
The
because like
metric we're using to evaluate that sequence is whether the opponent is dead at the end of it.
yes,
Got it. Okay, that makes sense to me. And that will be, I think, useful to people who are in choice paralysis mode from all of myself, maybe included, for all of the many ways that Bang can kill the opponent. Everyone, your goal, if you are trying to do what Blue does, is at the end of this line, the opponent is dead.
yeah. You just reduce their life to from 30 down to 0, and then that causes you to win. It's a really stable strategy.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can execute that part, really, the winning the game part is easy after you've reduced your opponent's life to 0.
Yep.
All right, so every card in the kit, every normal, econ, Endgames, other lines of play. Any other strategic considerations you want to bring up for Bang, or should we move on to counterplay and wrap up the lesson?
Um, I think we covered most of it because like the main strategic consideration would just be like generally playing neutral, which like I talked about set nail. I talked about like normals, and also like you're an exceed character. You're playing exceed. You're not you have gimmicks and tricks that you can do because you're also a ninja, but like you're mostly an exceed character in my opinion. So play like you would expect an exceed character to, and interact and win mix-ups and do cool things with your strong ultra boosts that every character has comped to them.
Yep. Makes sense to me. Okay.
As far as that goes. Anyways, counterplay.
Yeah, as you're doing all of this stuff, what is my opponent trying to do to stop me? And how am I stopping them from stopping me?
Well, if you're playing linearly into like the Hyper Shadow Step Frink's online, I already mentioned like if you're committing to that too hard, the opponent can stop it by like parrying or blocking this. Maybe parrying and blocking it, even.
Yep.
Which notably, blocking this isn't the best thing in the world. You probably want to actually parry it so that they simply can't play it.
Right.
Because it is a 0 gauge ultra
Yeah, the
if
gauge
you
is fake,
set up
right.
the overdrive. So like blocking it only does so much. If you can force a trade with it, that's awesome. That's not the easiest thing in the world. You need to have like a +1 armor focus available to you, or something along those lines. But like if you can force a trade with it, that's pretty cool. As mentioned, Bang is mostly an exceed character, so the way you beat him is going to be through regular exceed stuff. You're never beating this attack. Don't expect to beat this attack. Do not overcommit because this attack actually wins by punishing overcommitment.
Right. Yeah, it certainly doesn't win by doing 1 damage, even if it's stunned an assault. But if it stunned your 3 gauge ultra that is on curve at 3, it won.
Yeah. So like don't overcommit. in the face of a potential Bang style shuriken. Um, and also like don't get knowledge checked by instant info, which like again that is like a rare consideration, but it is a thing he can do.
Right.
Don't like give him things for free. So like if you suspect that the opponent is going to do that, maybe like think twice about boosting light into him. And also like I don't know, especially like this one. I don't know why you. Well, I guess it might be relevant, but like yeah, like think twice about what you're boosting into him because you can be opening up sick reading setups for him to hit Twitter clips with on you, and that's the worst thing in the world to have happen to you.
Oh yeah, no, that's how you get retired from the community. Don't become a clip. Don't become a
Yeah,
combo
yeah.
video.
But yeah, otherwise like these are mid speeds. You can beat mid speeds. This one is a really good mid speed. If this is a mid speed that he wants to play really badly and he's like willing to sacrifice everything to do it, uh, just trade with it.
Right.
Like, sure, it's the assault focus trade, and from the perspective of the Bang player, or like a person that is playing assault in the focus, that is the worst case. That is the best of the worst, but it is still kind of bad to force a trade. And like, um, if you have answers live for like his EX attack endgame, that also is like pretty useful. Which like notably that means that you need to know what the answers are, which like he's going to be helping you with that.
Right.
Um, and planning around that, which is like a lot of foresight that is required if you're like to that level. But also like before you even get there, you can like play the game normally with him. If you like are up like 25-12, it doesn't matter that he's going to hit you for like 18 damage
You can
in
probably
ways
just
that are
close
really
the
hard to
game out.
contest. Yeah, you can just beat him after that.
Okay. Okay. So his card quality overall is probably just going to be better than yours because that's his identity. Um he but with that card quality, he is mostly just going to be playing Exceed.
Yep,
And
it's
and
very similar to someone like Ryu. It's a very frightening opponent that is here to tell you that you are allowed to play the game. But sometimes you shouldn't be. You shouldn't get too cheeky because otherwise he's going to kill your ass.
okay. That makes sense. Um any other counterplay you wanted to mention?
Um, I don't know. Maybe like tech this one. He doesn't
Yeah,
actually have that many moves
Sentinel seems
that
pretty
you need to
good.
tech. So, so
Yeah.
like probably tech this.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um okay. Yeah. Um uh tech this, parry this if they're gonna do it. Maybe parry bang style if they're not gonna uh crutch hard on Shadow Step. Maybe parry palm thrust.
Genuinely, maybe parry a normal. Like Bang's damage is kind of low, so like if you get rid of all the sweeps, he is a lot more reliant on actually doing a EX attack sequence to make up for
Mhm.
that.
Or could you also look to parry something that he already has discarded one copy of, maybe?
Yeah. If
Okay.
you can completely disable an EX attack or force him to do this, which is the thing that you can trade with, if you
Yep.
win the trade into this, then this attack is lost.
Yep.
Um, like if you force him into stuff like that, that's great. But like he's mostly an Exceed character. This is just a giant DP. You beat it the way you beat every DP. He has 3 kicks. One of them you can trade with. One of them you can trade with focus. The other you probably don't want to lose to.
Right.
He has a card that is unbeatable, but it's really expensive and it's annoying to play, and also
And
does literally
yeah,
one
it's
damage.
pretty low upside, right?
And then this one is, a card that doesn't lose, but also rarely wins in decisive ways.
Yep.
So, it's literally a Tatsu. You beat it the same way that you beat like Ryu's Tatsu. It's basically Ryu's Tatsu.
Okay. That'll make sense to me. All right. So finally, that's character learned. We're now masters of Bang. Our mastery is such that we've become bored with Bang already, and I'm looking for new characters. And I've decided I really like Bang. Who's next on the list? Who should I pick up now that I'm? This is also continuing with this line of thought. Bang was somehow my first character. My first character was Bang. I've mastered Bang. I want another character. I really like Bang. Who am I? Who am I picking up next, Blue? Who's like Bang?
If you liked the ninja e mobility aspects of Bang, you might want to look into Satoshi, but also don't play Satoshi. He sucks.
Okay.
Um, Maybe Lucia, maybe Renea. Don't play Renea though; she sucks.
Maybe Cammy?
Yeah, Cammy's a pretty good one. I'm running through them in season order.
Oh, okay.
Um, if you were like, oh man, this recursion stuff is really awesome, maybe Zoe, but also don't play Zoe.
He
Um,
sucks.
yeah, like don't play Zoe. I would rather you not play Zoe. Um, is there anyone else from season 2 before I move on? That probably about covers season 2 as far as characters that I guess like sort of Zolt, but also don't play him.
He sucks.
Anyways, yeah, moving on from the ones that are hard to recommend characters from. Ryu,
Okay.
Ryu, Cammy. If you're like this Bang character is really cool, but I wish that his mid speeds were way more threatening. Ken Guile,
Okay.
maybe like a little bit of Akuma, but probably more Ken Guile. Um, if you liked the part about Bang where he is deceptively good at pretty much every range, but for some reason you didn't want to play Ryu and instead you wanted like more spicy zoning, maybe Sagat. Sagat also is like a little bit heavier, but he is another like generalist.
Okay.
Um, maybe Vega, but he's a little bit different. He is another mobility character, but he's like very focused on a like 50-50 mix up. Propeller Knight, mobility, generalists, like interesting stat like way to like manipulate your stats, like
It
pretty
a
similar to
lot
Bang.
a lot of like just enough stats in just the right places.
Yeah, and then also like the boosts let you like manipulate things in small ways,
Right.
which
Yeah.
like
These little nudges here and there.
Ken also does that. If you wanted like the cool parts of For Love and Justice and beat a nail with your hammer, Ken has that on lock.
Right.
Um, funny enough, I actually don't think the Blaze Blue Shadows mostly fill what Bang does. Maybe like Ragna. Ragna's like a pretty good generalist. He plays like much heavier than Bang. But if you were like these mid speeds are really awesome, but I want more trading in my Exceed character, then Ragna covers that pretty
Okay.
decently. Platinum is like tricky and kind of pillow fisted while still being like a generalist. So maybe like Platinum, Lychee if you want a character where you can fuck around with the stick, but also you can do everything.
Right. Sure.
If you're like, man, this recursion stuff is actually really cool, and I want to lean more into it, and you also want a generalist, Nine is who I'd actually recommend, or Ramlethal as mentioned.
Yep.
Both these characters do the Bang recursion stuff in ways that are more
More
active
defensively
and
oriented.
yeah, more active and more centered around like what their actual game plan is versus Bang, where it's like a thing that he can do and it's really cool and awesome, and but it's not necessarily the focus of the character.
Sure.
I think that about covers it for season 5. Season 6, sort of Gordo, but he's kind of different. If you like the part of Bang where you put a bunch of stuff engaged and tell your opponent what that you're going to die to, hide, but also please don't play hide.
He sucks.
Um,
By the way, I don't think most of these characters suck for reference viewers. I'm just joking about what Blue said about Satoshi and Renea. Blue
but
might
also
think
like
they suck.
really don't play Zoe, please. Don't play Zoe. Kind of Enkidu, and that you have like a toolkit that you can leverage in interesting ways, but the resource management is very different
Okay.
on Enkidu. Uh, if you like defensive, like blue shadowy type characters like Ryu, then Kai is a very safe pick. Ramlethal, as already mentioned, is pretty reasonable. Anji, which Anji replaces like the speedster aspects of what Bang's got going on with like heavy like guard aspects, but otherwise is doing a very similar game plan of like I am playing Exceed, you are playing Exceed. Neither of us have a lot of stats, but we're gonna be really fucking awesome at playing Exceed still somehow.
Right.
Which like Anji is another character that does that really well. Similar to like with the other Red Shotos, if you look at Bang and you're like, this is awesome, but I want like cooler mid speeds to throw at the opponent, like Baiken, Giovanna,
Sure.
Soul Bad Guy. Which is basically like, as far as that goes, I would recommend you check out like Ragna, Ken, or Soul if the mid speeds are the part that you like about Bang and you don't really care about having fast safe stuff. And then from there, like I don't know, check out like May, Baiken, Geo, but like I would probably check out one of
Yeah.
the Red Shotos
At
first.
that point, go look for all of the lessons that Blue has done on my channel and just pick up all those characters.
Yeah, that's a very safe pick. Pick
Yeah.
up all the characters that I have teached because I like them all for similar reasons. But yeah, so like The safest recommendations, in short, would be um, to play Blue Shotos, which is like Ryu, um, Jin, sort of, but I actually think he has a very different appeal.
Right.
Hyde, sort of, but also kind of different appeal. And then Kai, so like Ryu, Kai, I think are both very safe picks. And then like depending on if you like the mix-ups that he has, but you want like more threatening, then you might want to look into Red Shotos, which is like Ken, Ragna, Soul. And then
Sure.
if you like the recursion stuff, I would heavily recommend Nine, the Phantom, or Ramlethal. I think both those characters are reasonably interesting and lean heavier into that.
Okay. Now, Blue, you've listed a lot of my favorite characters here. I love Kai. I love Anji. I love. I think Propeller Knight is really cool. I love Ryu. I love Guile. I love Sagat. Clearly, the takeaway from this lesson is that I need to learn and master and pick up and main Zoe and Satoshi.
Please, please, please don't. I should have not mentioned them, even though
A-
technically Satoshi is a ninja like
And
Bang, and
and
Zoe is a
what
recursion character.
and one more finger on the monkey's paw curls. Um, in seriousness, though, that's a great lineup of characters, and also Zoe and Satoshi are there. Um, you're going to be able to find somebody that you like if you like Bang. He touches a lot of
Yeah, the
elements
good news
of
is
Exceed
if you like,
design that
yeah,
other
if you like
characters
Bang,
share.
you probably like Exceed generally. That
Right.
is like the best thing I can tell you is that you probably like Exceed generally, which means there's going to be a lot of characters that will fulfill similar things to what Bang is doing for you in ways that are different enough that they will still be compelling.
Yep. Absolutely.
Unless you like recursion, in which case you have like three characters to pick from, and one of them is a character that is basically banned, and then the other two are a character that people don't like, and it's often because of the recursion, and a character that people should like a lot less than they do, but she is pretty epic and based.
Right.
I'll
And
let you decide which of those is which.
yeah, and I have no insight into that, so don't ask me. Um, if you do like Bang for the recursion, also you probably know those characters and you are ready to pick them up. So this
Very true.
part of the conversation is a little bit academic. All right. I think Blue for real. I am now a master of Bang. In two
Yeah, you
years,
actually learned that
I I
Bang Saw Shuriken has a before
has
effect
a
instead of
before
a hit
effect.
effect
Yeah,
on
I
it.
finally did it. That was the one thing that we missed the last time we did this lesson 2 years ago. So next time in 2 years, we'll do this lesson again for some reason.
Oh, it's gonna be
And
so.
just repeatedly teach me Bang for the rest of my life. In seriousness, though, Blue, of course, as always, thank you so much for your expertise and your time. Really, really appreciate it. Always have a good time talking to you. Thank you for teaching me Bang.
As always.
Yeah. And viewers, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I will see you all for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.